Something isn't right here. Now, hear me out. Occasionally on this channel, I have a thought. And believe it or not, it happens. I know some of you are in disbelief right now. Maybe it's the Amish chin strap that's helping me channel the spirits of the elders or something. But occasionally it happens. And it occurred to me today that as a hardline 24/7 news junkie, that many of you are as well, we see all the data. We see the matrix for what it is. We see the tension points around the world percolating under the surface, just getting ready to explode through in some explosive event. Some massive vertical escalation is about to happen in one of the many theaters of this SHTF fabric, which is just pulsating right now. We know something has to give at some point. Yet, many of us have fallen along the way. We've just capitulated to the normalcy bias, right? We just said, well, maybe nothing's going to happen. You know, people who were intrigued at the start of this whole thing when it started in 2022, and maybe their interest gets piqued a little bit here and there, but they always throw in the towel, right? And they say, they got weak hands, as they would say in the markets. They just capitulate and they just say, well, you know, maybe nothing's going to happen. Today, that happened to me. Okay, in spite of the fact that so much has happened in the last 24 hours that on any other day, you know, prior to this desensitization phase that we've endured over the last 2 years, would make anybody turn their heads and say, holy shit, the frickin' shit's about to hit the fan. I'm talking about bombing of Moscow happening right now as we speak, okay? I'm talking about the second highest in the chain of command in Hamas being assassinated just days after the assassination of another major figure in the Middle East, and in Lebanese territory of all places, on the day before the leader of Hezbollah is supposed to give a speech on the anniversary of General Soleimani, one of the most lauded Iranian generals in history. Now, all of this happening, West Bank mobilizing, the North Koreans tearing up the plan for reunification with South Korea, the massive intensification that's taking place between Russia and Ukraine that nobody knows about anymore because it's not even being reported in the mainstream media in the West. And if you look on any mainstream media page, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, CNN, they've removed the war in Ukraine tab, okay? Now, isn't that convenient? And I talked about this yesterday, how we're at a point now where the escalation is greater than it's ever been before. The possibility for overstepping a red line and inflection is greater than ever before. And yet here, I myself today have this passing feeling, it was short-lived, but I had it, that maybe nothing's going to happen. I had that normalcy Norman moment where I'm like, you know what, this assassination, this war mobilization, the fact that the Civil Reserve Fleet of the U.S. military has been activated, which is a huge red flag that no one's talking about. I should be talking about that in every single video. And here I'm telling myself, yeah, maybe nothing's going to happen. Maybe this whole idea of flashbulb events and red line escalations and overreactions in response to provocations by ones, it just doesn't happen anymore, you know? And that's when it occurred to me. It's like, holy shit. I think when people like myself, who are incredibly astute and hyper attentive to the news cycle, I mean, on top of it, like something happens, I know about it in 5 minutes, typically nowadays, thanks to social media. But if a person like me has finally thrown in the towel and said that, well, maybe nothing's ever going to happen, that's probably when SHTF has consolidated to a certain point where the black swan is going to come. It's like that whole weak hand hypothesis in the markets, right? With any stock or market play, whatever financial instrument play you're referring to, what happens is when the value starts dropping, people start selling. Right? And it's only the ones with true conviction in that asset class. Those are the ones who stay, and those are the diamond hands, as they call them. And that's what I've been in this SHTF game for the longest time, in this prepper prognostication game, you could say. I've been the diamond hands. I've been like, no, I know it seems like nothing's going to happen, but something's going to happen. Today I just thought, you know what? Maybe nothing's going to happen. And that passing feeling almost gave me like a glimmer of awareness of what is happening right now. It's that we're almost to that point where people don't care. Because if I don't care, then I can assure you 95% of people don't give a shit. You guys are the 5%, the other 5% that care with me, right? But if we don't care anymore, then that's when we get blindsided, right? That's when it comes. It never fails. That right when and I don't know if it's planned that way or if, I think it's just the nature of modern warfare. It has to be such that it has to, just like Sun Tzu says, your plans have to be dark as night and then you have to strike like a thunderbolt. People cannot expect it. And so this is why when, okay, the second in chain in command with Hamas has been assassinated, everybody expects a reaction. Everybody wants an overreaction. Well, all of these guys have read The Art of War, okay? I mean, you could get The Art of War for 99 cents at the dollar store nowadays, right? So everybody knows The Art of War. So unless you wanted to lose, you would react, right? You would overreact. Hamas or Hezbollah would just declare war on Israel tomorrow. But because everybody's trying to think strategically, with the exception of the West, let's be brutally honest, because we have had such a technological edge over the years that we don't have to really think in 4D. We don't have to think that many moves ahead because we've always had the technological advantage. Israel just thought, hey, we'll just go in there and blow the shit out of that place and there'll be no consequences. And now, we're just going to have to withdraw 5 brigades or something like that. They're saying it's for the economic reasons, but let's face it, it's because they're moving them to the northern border. I mean, they're activating the Civil Reserve Fleet, the air fleet, meaning that the United States is in a period of logistical crisis. And where are they sending these weapon systems and supplies? God only knows. Is it to Ukraine? Is it to Poland? Is it to Israel? Is it to somewhere else in the Middle East? Is it to Taiwan? Is it South Korea? Is it to somewhere in Guyana? Who knows? Because there's wars breaking out everywhere. So it just occurred to me that this is where we're at. So I know that I'm going to be reawakened with my prepper mindset tomorrow, because I know when I'm having these feelings, that means that something's about to happen. But we cannot expect these things to unfold in a linear fashion, in a predictable fashion, because of course, as soon as one side takes the bait and takes the provocation of the other, they lose. That's how war works. If Hezbollah were to immediately react, if that's what the goal of Israel's attack on or assassination of that leader was, if it was to trigger some sort of response, then clearly Israel would have a contingency plan for that response and Hezbollah would take the bait, and maybe this would bring the United States into the war, and Netanyahu would definitely have his forever war. He would have his war on 3 fronts, like immediate fronts, not counting all of the militias in Syria, okay? So you have, it'd really be 4 fronts, because it'd be Syria, Lebanon, West Bank, and Hezbollah, or Hamas, totally surrounded. And who knows, maybe Egypt at some point, because the people there, the people in Egypt, lots of them do support the Palestinians, but this is not the case with the government there. So at some point, that situation has to reconcile itself. So you're potentially looking at like a 7 to 8 front war when you factor in the Houthis and the Iranians. And the Houthis, which are still attacking ships, right? That's still a problem. And you know that the UK and the US are planning on doing a retaliation, but they're not going to do it right away. Everybody has been trained to think that they're going to react. And the markets reflect this. Now, I've been trying to think about the markets, because really the markets don't make a lot of sense, do they? We see all this escalation in the Middle East. Everything I've told you today, the hedge funds know. The big money movers, they know everything I've told you. So why is oil still down in the dumps? Well, we know there's some mitigating factors like the US setting records for their oil output. We know that maybe there's a recession already priced in, And that's actually kind of scary, because if there's thinking that this is going to be the price level for oil during the recession, that's pretty bad. Okay, that means that this could be the bottom for oil. And if there isn't a recession, then of course the price of oil skyrockets. And this presumes then that maybe the base price of oil right now, minus the Middle East conflict, and maybe it's around $35 for all we know, right? Because of the market slowdown. But it's at 70 because they're expecting shit to hit the fan in the Middle East. Now, I still think that maybe there are people in Washington who are telling the money men that, hey, don't worry, we're going to make sure that the oil can safely transit the various corridors throughout that region. Maybe that's the case. And maybe they're not taking the Houthi threats seriously. Maybe they're not taking the Iranian threats to close the Strait of Hormuz seriously. But we know what their capabilities are. Perhaps they've shown their hand too much. Perhaps the Houthis are just full of bluster, and they're going to find out at some point. It's possible. They do have a very sizable military, and it doesn't matter how technologically sophisticated you are, you're not going to win a subterranean conflict on multiple fronts, especially when your adversary is using a great combination of new technology and asymmetrical tactics. It's the Taliban with ballistic missiles. So, this is just an untenable situation. There has to be a flashbulb event at some point. We just don't know when it's going to come. And I think now that I've finally had weak hands, it's probably going to come. Now, there's probably a sexual joke in there somewhere. Anyways, little moment of levity. Intermission, guys, intermission. So we had the Israeli brigades cycled. So they pulled out these 5 brigades. I think it was 5 brigades. What is that, like 20,000 troops or something? That's a lot of troops. To cycle them back into the economy, give them a break because it's going to be a long war. Now, they're also saying that this is due to pressure of the United States, saying that, well, we got to deal with this humanitarian situation. Yet, this didn't stop. Like, if you would think that pressure would have been put on them during the peak when everybody was out riding in the streets. There really is. There's been a few protests throughout the Middle East, but, things have died down significantly. So if there ever was a time to go full steam ahead, this would be it. So either Netanyahu's just trying to create the conditions for a forever war, because they're even openly saying that, and the Institute for the Study of War, anything that starts with institute, questionable, right? Usually there's some deep state money going into that institution. Emphasis on institutionalized. Anyways, so the Institute for the Study of War has said that this is going to allow Hamas to consolidate their forces and arm up again and resupply. And, they're going to be a greater force to be reckoned with when Israel returns to the fight. Not that they're leaving the fight altogether, but they're currently getting their asses handed to them. So why would you leave at this point in time unless you were planning on starting a war on another front? So anyways, there's that, okay? The Fatah military wing in the West Bank, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades have declared a general mobilization to confront the Israeli assassination of Hamas leaders. We have another Houthi attack, the 24th Houthi attack to date. We have Turkey foiling a Mossad plot in Istanbul. 33 spies were arrested. These guys were going to try to take out Hamas leaders. 33 spies. What? 33? What's with 33 and that whole Middle Eastern Israel thing? Something weird, isn't it? Something's going on. 33 degrees of separation, degrees of, there's some organization that there's 33 degrees. I can't quite put my finger. Maybe some of you guys can help me in the comments. Oh, hey, is it on one of these? Oh, no, that's not a dollar bill. Well, I guess I got to find an American dollar bill. Do they still have dollar bills? So the war with Russia is picking up. Attacks into Belgorod, into Moscow. As we speak, bombardments of the capital in Moscow. And everybody thinks they got this in the bag. Look, the Russians unveiled this new radar system that was supposed to allow them to pinpoint the HIMARS systems. And apparently they were able to take out 2 of these. And it was destroyed today. There's a video of it being destroyed. So, you know, this idea that the Russians are getting the upper hand and they have this in the bag when 20% of their Black Sea fleet has been destroyed and they've now been moved back in deep into the Black Sea. And, you know, there really isn't a whole lot of movement on the front lines. And now you have Ukraine getting F-16s. The Germans today said that we will give Taurus missiles if the spending bill goes through. And you know how they're going to pass that? Well, all of the propagandists, the Ukrainian propagandists who are currently in the United States for some reason, that's interesting. They say they're on vacation. What they're trying to do is they're trying to associate the border crisis, and this is how they're going to do it. They're going to say, because they know the Democrats aren't going to allow them to say Mexicans coming into the country bad, but they know the Democrats will allow them to say Russians coming into the country bad. So what they're going to say is, you know, Biden has to make some concessions on the southern border issue because the Russians are coming in. Russian sleeper cells are coming in by the numbers. And, you know, they're probably right. I mean, any responsible adversary would take advantage of that chink in our armor. Why wouldn't you send, you know, thousands of your agents and spies over the southern border? Of course you would. So I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that's how they're probably going to get the spending bill passed. I mean, that's an angle I would push if I was trying to ram that thing through. What else do we got? We got the Americans saying that, you know, we didn't know that the Israelis were going to attack this guy and blah, blah, blah. You see how the Americans, they try to pretend like they're an impartial third party, but all the while they're basically there at the behest of Israel. Lloyd Austin made that abundantly clear that as soon as Israel gets in a war, that they're going to join in and we're going to send all our troops to die for this, whatever the hell is going on over there. Something to do with the Bible or something. I don't know. Anyways, but funny enough, they were going to make it in Uganda. Wasn't that where the Balfour Declaration? It was like Uganda was one of the first places. Yeah, let's put it in Uganda. No, let's go to the Middle East. You know, it must not have been, you know, very principled if you could just pick the location. Anyways, who cares? Nothing that's going to be resolved here. Hamas has announced the suspension of any further negotiations, hostage negotiation, or peace talks with Israel. It's over. It's war from this point forward, full stop. And what that means for the hostages, I don't know. Apparently there was some kind of terrorist attack attempt in NYC. Turkey has blocked access to the Black Sea from UK minesweepers. Now, they can access via the Bosphorus Strait. I believe these ships can also come through the Danube River, but there are treaties on both the Danube and the Bosphorus that indicate that a warship can't pass through there. So Turkey's playing hardball, right? They're trying to be this mediator between the Russians. They know if they send these UK minesweepers in there, they're probably going to get murked by the Russians. The Russians are dropping mines throughout the grain corridor. The Ukrainians say that, but the Russians are saying, no, these are actually Ukrainian mines. Who knows? Everybody's pointing fingers. Regardless, this is how, and even Zelensky said that things heat up in the Black Sea. I mean, this is where it's going to happen, right? This is, and that Gerald R. Ford thing, you know, the more that I think about it, you know, that strike carrier group wasn't even going to be one of the ones that was that active. It was the other one. I can't remember the name that is still there. Okay. So the Gerald R. Ford returning, I don't even put a whole lot of stock in. If anything, that's a feint maneuver to try to entice the Lebanese to say, oh, we're going away. You know, you can attack now, even though half our Navy's still there. Venezuela is sending troops to Guyana border, and they're going to remain there until the British warship that is currently there leaves. So that situation is heating up. And what a tragedy in that Venezuela has the most oil. I think they have more oil than Saudi Arabia. So, I mean, this is all about energy, guys. Russians were able to hack Ukrainian SBU security service cameras and they were able to get information on air defense and critical infrastructure. So they were able to hack into the cameras and their conversations that they were having. This was a big hack. I think the biggest story that is going to be missed by most people today is the fact that the U.S. has effectively greenlit Ukraine to attack deep inside Russia. Now, this might pertain to Starlink as well, now that they have control over Elon Musk. Elon Musk has basically said, if the U.S. military asks, I will give them anything they want, including, all the data on Twitter users. Well, he didn't say that. Including that guy who just bought a Cybertruck on me who didn't pay his taxes. No, he didn't say that either, but that's coming. Including pacifying the guy who has the Neuralink in his brain that was, defiant on social media. He didn't say that, but that's coming. Anyways, no more restrictions on HIMARS. This is a major escalation. Remember, they gave him ATACMS just a couple months ago. People thought we would never give him ATACMS. Sure enough, they did. Washington has allowed Kiev to independently make decisions on the range of strikes. This is a Russian translation. So what they mean is the place, the target area of strikes from the HIMARS MLRS. In the past, the United States have changed these systems so that the Ukrainian armed forces could not use them for attacks. I don't know if they use this GPS, they program it, so you can attack in certain places, geo-fence it, so to speak. But anyways. And lastly, the North Koreans will scrap their efforts to reunify the Korean Peninsula due to South Korea's collusion with foreign forces. So there was this plan to reunify with the South. Now, if the North Koreans and the South, I think they made a video game about this. I think it was called Homefront. And what happened was the North and the South were unified, and they just became a massive powerhouse. I mean, you're talking about, that would be one of the most powerful countries in the world. Possibly more powerful than Japan. I mean, likely because they have more military capability. So now the United States doesn't have to worry about that anymore. North Korea's focus is going to be on showcasing their maximum weapon capabilities, particularly their nuclear capabilities, before the upcoming U.S. presidential election. And isn't that the elephant in the room? Who are they going to put in there for Biden? Is Biden really going to run? The guy who said the only reason why he's running is because Trump's running? I mean, are they really going to put this? I cannot imagine. I mean, granted, everybody but Peter Schiff thought that Trump had it in the bag last time. Peter Schiff was like, no, I think Biden's going to win. We're going to have to get him on the channel again to see, because he's pretty good. Maybe not so good in his predictions about gold prices, but he's finally being vindicated in that respect. But to get him on to see what his thoughts are about the upcoming election, because I just cannot see a reality, a universe where they run this guy again. I mean, talk about Manchurian candidate. I mean, they're just going to have to get a robot lookalike or something, because, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, everybody sees it at this point. So it makes you wonder, is there going to be any elections at all? That's the scary thing. I mean, is all of this tension building and this waiting for black swans, is it all going to come right at the opportune time to say, well, we got to postpone the election? And, you could envision an event so severe that people were willing to make that concession and to say, okay, we'll postpone the election. Like, you can think of an attack on American soil that was so intense that the majority of people would be okay with that. Now, I'm not saying there wouldn't be a hell of a lot of pushback. Of course there would be. Conspiracy would be abound, especially nowadays. Who are we kidding? We got Alex Jones back on Twitter again. So, I don't know. Is it within the Overton window for me and Alex to have a conversation yet? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section below if you think I should have Alex on the channel, or if he should host me and we should just talk about prepping. But either way, we've been invited on some podcasts. It's pretty exciting, honestly, but at the same time, it's like makes me wonder, like, where is this going? Like, you know, this whole prepping thing, once it becomes mainstream, is this the FOMO phase of it, where everybody's FOMOing in, like, to reverse the market metaphor? Now it's the FOMO, and we're going to see a blow off top at some point. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you're feeling the same way I'm feeling, with you see all of these red lines being overstepped and there's no response, yet that's because everybody's trying to play with, abide by the principles of the art of war. And so nobody's making that reaction that typically is the case in a black swan event. Guys, I forgot to put the link, the proper link to our Geiger counters that we manufacture here in Saskatoon by nuclear physicists in Saskatoon. They're made specifically for nuclear war. A lot of Geiger counters mislead people in terms of what their capabilities are. This Friday, our resident physicist is going to be back, and he's going to show us how it works. He's going to give us the crash course. He's going to talk to us like I'm a dullard, which I can be, believe it or not. And if I can understand this, then you're going to be able to understand this. But I think it's very important that you get this equipment. This is a very rare device. I'll post a link in the description below. It's a great way to support the channel. We make them here locally in Canada. And it's a one-of-a-kind in the sense that it senses just the right types of radiation in the right amounts. A lot of the Geiger counters you go and buy off Amazon, you know, you might as well just, you know, you might as well just, you're not going to be protected. And that's the tragedy. If somebody ever tried to use that in one of those situations, it would not alert you to danger in the way that it's supposed to. So stay tuned for that. We got Sean from My Self-Reliance coming on the channel in very short order. We got Dr. Brian Keating coming back, who's a cosmologist. And we're going to talk about big threats like asteroids and solar flares and things of that nature. We just got tons of things coming down the pike. So stay tuned. It's going to be one hell of a year. Let's hope it's not the last. I might even have to get old Gerald Salente back on here because that guy's been on fire lately. And we'll just have to get him to tone down the language, because I know there's a lot of language Karens out there who think that... you know, after the apocalypse, the bad guys aren't going to use curse words. Well, let's see how that works out. Take care, guys. Talk to you soon.